Hey everyone, welcome back. This is actually going to be the lecture video for 4.3 and 4.4. We're going to be working with the domain and range of continuous functions. I'm just going to do a couple examples and then you'll be on your way. So we know that the domain are the inputs in the set of all x's. So it's along the x-axis here, and we know that the range is the set of all y values. The up and the down, right? So inputs, outputs, domain, range. Just wanted to refresh you there. So we're going to actually be able to express the domain and range from the graph in two different ways. One will be as an inequality, and the second will be in interval notation. So this is why it's 4.3 and 4.4. 4.3 is the inequality piece, and 4.4 is the interval notation. For the domain of this graph, we want to know what x's does it include. And you can see that it goes all the way across, and it's going to continue. That's what this arrow means. It's going to keep going forever and ever and ever. It's going to catch every number. When it does that, when you can see that there are no stopping points here, the answer is going to be simply all real numbers. Going to eventually get every single number that you can think of. All of these are included. Everything in between here, and then everything on and on and on and on. That's what that arrow means. That is for how we would express it for 4.3 for the inequality way. For interval notation, we're going to say what interval it's included on. So when it's all real numbers, x is going to go all the way from negative infinity to positive infinity. And that's always with the parenthesis and not the bracket, because the parenthesis means not included. But anyway, it's going to go every number that we know. It's going from all the way from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity. So that is how we would express it here for 4.4 for our interval notation. It's every number we know, the tiniest and the largest. For the range, we know that that is along the y-axis. Again, with these arrows, we know that it's never going to stop, right? So just because 2 is the last one we see, this arrow means it's going to keep going. If we stretch this graph out, if we stretched it and stretch it forever and ever and ever, eventually it would get every number. So our range is actually the same as our domain here, and we have all real numbers. In our interval notation, when it's all real numbers, we know it looks like this every time. Okay. So bear with me. Let's do another example. The domain, we know we're going to be moving along the x-axis here. These two arrows, again, show us that it's going to eventually catch every single value on this x-axis. So the domain, again, is all real numbers. Which in turn is negative infinity. Ooh, that was an ugly infinity. To positive infinity. The range this time is not going to be all real numbers, because we can see there is a stopping point. There are no y values anywhere lower than 2. This is where it stops. Right? It's bigger than that. Anything bigger than 2. And 2 is included. For our inequality, the range, it's going to be y. because it's a range. If it were the domain, we'd use x, but it's y is greater than or equal to 2. See how that makes sense? It's 2 or more, and it does stretch on in this direction, so it's bigger or equal to 2. When we do this in our interval notation, we use a bracket because 2 is included. 2 is the smallest. You're going to start with the smallest. And then it goes on to infinity. We don't have a biggest. That's what our interval notation looks like. We've got one more example. All right. Here we can see at the end, we don't have arrows. We just have closed circles, which means it's not going on forever and ever, and it is stopping. So for the domain, we have a stopping point right here and a stopping point right here. See that? It's not all real numbers. X is going to be in between, and it's x -7 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 5. It's in between -7, x is literally between -7 and 5. Our interval notation, it's between -7 and 5. Now for the range. The y-axis, the y. The tallest that it gets is right here, and the shortest or the smallest that it goes is right here, and it stops, which means y is in between -4 and +6. So when we write that in interval notation or in inequality notation, y is literally between -4 and +6. Then for interval notation, looks like that. So what you really want to do here, the tips or the key, is you want to look on your graph you're going to go left to right for domain, and then you're going to go up and down for a range, and you're just going to look for those stopping points or those parameters. And that is all. This is the lecture for 4.3 and 4.4, so you may have to watch this a couple of times to do both assignments. One's going to be due Thursday and one's going to be due Friday. And that is actually all then for the week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and an awesome weekend.